More than 1,000 aroma molecules have been identified in wines to date. Who knows how many more remain to be discovered? These molecules, in varying mixes and quantities, create a whole array of different aromas, though they only account for one part of wine in 1,000, or 0.1%, such as 1.2 grams per liter on average. Some of these aroma compounds are mere traces, hardly detectable by our powerful analytical tools. There are some major determining factors linked to the aroma and origins of wine. Vines, the age and the varieties, geological nature of vineyard soil, local climate, terroir, which is the land, a mix of parts above the land. Vintage or year, vine cultivation practices such as pruning, harvesting, and more, vinification processes, maturing, storage, and aging conditions. So what are some of these origins of aromas? Which ones were already present in the grapes, and how did the others develop? All these questions have led scientists, researchers to carry out a lot of information, gathering information and researching information on aroma precursors, and to classify aromas according to the winemaking stage which produces them. Aroma precursors: a grape is born when the flower forms a bud in June in Europe, and at the beginning of summer in August in California. It gives off a subtle scent. After initiation of berry development, called setting, the seeds are protected until they are fully developed. With time and sunshine, the grapes mask and store aroma precursors. These precursors are water-soluble molecules. They do not give off any fragrance of their own. So their aroma is not free. It's not accessible. They're made up of an aromatic fraction attached to a small carbohydrate. Thanks to an enzyme, a protein in the grape, a reaction occurs and releases the aroma. This production of aromas from precursors continues during alcoholic fermentation and then during the maturing process. Besides these aroma molecules stemming from precursors, other primary or varietal aromas develop after the grapes are harvested. Then, both alcoholic fermentation and malolactic fermentation give rise to secondary aromas, also described as pre-fermentation and fermentation aromas. Lastly, during the maturing phase and the bottling stage, new aroma molecules form in the wine. These are called tertiary or post-fermentation aromas. This classification of wine aromas as primary, secondary, and tertiary cannot be followed to the letter, as an aroma may originate from various sources. For example, the rose scent may stem from primary molecules such as beta-citronello, and others of secondary origin connected with fermentation such as phenylethyl alcohol, all of which contribute to the final rose note. There are three levels: primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas. Primary, a good example is found in wines made from the muscat grape, or otherwise known as Muscat à petit grain, whose powerful and characteristic aromas give one the impression of biting into fresh grapes. As these grapes ripen, we know that linol and citronello molecules arise from aroma precursors, thus contributing to the typical muscat note. Other examples of primary aroma molecules producing are like a vegetal and spicy notes, like bell pepper, pine, thyme, pepper. The best example is 2-methoxyl-3-ibutyl-pyrazine, bell pepper, or otherwise called as capsicum, which is found in wines made from the Cabernet varieties like Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon that we know so well in California. They remain unaltered through vinification. They're strong. There's also floral notes and fruity notes. The floral notes like hawthorn, acacia, linden, rose, and violet. Linden and acacia are frequent notes in Vouvray and Sauterne, and rosé is found in Gewürztraminer. Finally, fruity notes: lemon, grapefruit, orange, muscat. We find these in white wine. Others like raspberry, red currant, black currant, bilberry, blackberry, and cherry in red wine. Burgundy's Pinot Noir is bursting with the fabulously opulent and ultra-mellow scent of raspberry, certainly due to primary aroma molecules. Now the secondary aromas, these aromas created in microorganisms during fermentation stem from the transformation of grape constituents, mostly sugars and amino acid. Then come to the alcohols, esters, lactones, and aldehydes, a flurry of aroma compounds which considerably augment the wine's aromatic potential. These represent only a minimal amount of product compared to the quantity of ethyl alcohol formed. They include isomalt acetate, which is that bubblegum or banana note that you find on wheat beers, ethyl butanate, or that pineapple note you'll find in a lot of American Chardonnays, and ethyl-3-methylbutanate, or that apple note, which develops in the course of alcoholic fermentation. Diacetyl, hazelnut butter note, unfolds mostly during the malolactic fermentation of Chardonnay wines, especially in California and Australia. There are many other aroma molecules which give sense of lychee, melon, apple, pear, fresh quince, strawberry, apricot, peach, walnut, honey, in Semillon and Pinot Gris, wine lees, which is the leftover lees or yeast, black currant bud or boxwood, cinnamon, for instance in Tokay, clove and gewürztraminer, and saffron in late harvest sauternes. The final level are the tertiary aromas. Once the wine is left to mature in oak barrels, its aromatic transformation continues. When barrels are made, staves are heated with a brazier to bend them, and the tannins and wood cellulose break down, giving rise to a whole array of aroma molecules, most notably vanillin, whiskey lactones, like coconut, diacetyl, which is that fresh butter note, eugenol, or clove note, and 4-ethylphenol, which is that leather note or band-aid, furfural, which is like an amaretto or bitter almond note. These molecules and many others pervade the wine readily, as ethyl alcohol is a very good solvent for these aromas. As they age, white wines take on aromas of dried fruit, apricots, and currants, whereas red wines develop dominant aromas of prunes and figs. Jean Eloi has often been struck by the heady scent of truffle in Old Pomerol. Here's a palette of tertiary aromas found in wines: prune, mushroom, truffle, cedar, licorice, leather, musk, toast, roasted almond, roasted hazelnut, caramel, coffee, chocolate, and smoky note. The occurrence of faults in wine may originate at the primary, secondary, or tertiary stage. Just like us, wine can experience small problems, accidents, sickness, or alterations, which may be due to a lack of care for the grapes or the wine, among other reasons. Although problems in wine occur far less frequently than they used to, it is still important to learn how to detect them. Acetic acid, a secondary aroma, reeks of vinegar and gives the wine an offensive sharpness. Hydrogen sulfur, a secondary or tertiary aroma, is announced by an odor of rotten eggs due to reduction in wines that are overzealously protected from oxidation. The unpleasant tertiary aroma of cork is often due to the deterioration of the cork, whose quality is sometimes inferior to that of wine.